What's up? What's up? What's up? How's everybody doing?
Hey,
I'm glad
y'all.
to see y'all. Awesome, awesome. First and foremost, want to say shouts out to DJ Emancipation. She has been throwing them joints. First of all, the Donny Hathaway. Also to our ASL interpreter who is fly and is also, I see that extra soul that you've given me in the ASL right now, and I appreciate that love. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yeah. All right. And so thank you. We want to start off. First and foremost, my name is Carrie Fulton. I'm the Frontline Policy Coordinator with the Climate Justice Alliance. And I'm also here with my amazing co-presenter, Ben Ishibashi. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, y'all. I'm Ben Ishibashi, they, them pronouns. I'm the lead climate justice organizer at People's Action, based in Chicago on Peoria, Miami, Potawatomi, and Kickapoo land.
Wonderful. And we're here to talk to you a little bit more about the people's orientation to a regenerative economy. And that came out of the United Frontline table, which we are happy to be members of. So you want to take it away with some of our slides?
Yeah, let me just get... All right.
Ooh, wonderful. So first and foremost, you might have heard a little bit about the United Frontline table. We are a coalition of different organizations who came together to say that the front lines needs a real voice in this fight as we are growing and thriving towards a regenerative economy. You can go to the next slide. And this all kind of came together through a partnership that happened in Detroit in the summer of 2019. And at that gathering, we gathered together over 80 grassroots leaders from 64 different frontline groups and allied organizations. You go to the next slide. Now, People's Action and Climate Justice Alliance, along with a number of other organizations, came together to create this. And we want to show a quick video clip so you can see what that process was like as we were considering what does it mean to create a regenerative economy? What does it mean to say we want these things in our community? What does it mean to say we don't want these things in our community? And what do these solutions look like for the front lines? So we'll play this quick clip.
So it's such an honor to be in this space, be invited by the front lines of Detroit to show a solidarity, to show love, to show that we're a force, that the front line is a force. Can I hear some love for the front line as a force? Right?
We got a lot of work to do today, and we are so blessed to be able to come together and do this work.
It's so important and amazing and inspirational to be in these spaces with other communities that face the same thing.
Richmond is a sacrifice zone. It is an Our Power community. We have the biggest point source pollution for carbon emissions in the state of California, the Chevron refinery. We're basically trying to remake our economy.
Well, Kentucky is on the front lines of our extractive economy, which has done damage to our air and our water, and also to communities, and certainly to many people's bodies and health. And we're also on the front lines of developing solutions.
Ironbound is a neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey. In Ironbound community, we do environmental justice, organizing and advocacy work. We strive to build community power because we believe that community power is part of the regenerative economy.
We're pulling together to create a new plan for energy, a new plan for food, a new plan for our people, for housing, for reentry, just a new plan, because the existing plan doesn't serve us.
Direct action provides our communities with a mobilizing tool, an organizing tool, but more than anything, it provides our people with power outside of some of these legislative sectors. It's the way in which we show our muscle and show how we can liberate one another and how we can work together.
We also work with young people in Richmond, activating them, employing them with real living wages to remake the food system. So we have a CSA program. We have 7 different school and community gardens and 2 farms. CSA program that feeds over 156 families now with plans to feed 250. This is every week.
We took it upon ourselves to develop a plan. We call it the Empower Kentucky Plan. To show Kentucky's best options for making a transition to a clean energy economy, and demonstrated that actually it is possible to create 46,000 net new jobs, to lower average utility bills by 10% over 15 years.
We try to create space, trying to grow our own food so that we can repair our relationship with food, but also our relationship with the land, and hopefully create space there so that people can connect with each other.
Que hay que cambiar el sistema. Para hacer eso necesitamos hablar, para necesitar eso necesitamos juntarnos, para hacer eso necesitamos ser más humildes y sentarnos en la misma mesa y lograr unos consensos para empezar a hacer otra cosa.
So when I look out, I breathe free. Because I see our people here. That's a shout out to Breathe Free, Detroit, close down that incinerator.
In times of crisis, we can't depend on the government or external forces to come help us. We have to depend on each other and the people that we have trust and relationship with. When we're just working in our community, it can feel easy to feel alone, to feel like the whole system, this ginormous system, is against us. But when we come to spaces like this and realize that we have comrades in other parts of the state and other parts of this country that are fighting against the same capitalist beast, we need that. We need to know we're not alone. We need to know that if something happens in another community, our community can show up. That's where we're building up mutual aid and solidarity. And when we show up for each other, we can figure out the way forward together.
Thank you so much for that. And as you can see, it's important that we focused on community voices and gathering together as many frontline voices so we can determine what it means for us to determine a regenerative economy. So what is a regenerative economy? You want to go to the next slide, Ben? So a regenerative economy is based on ecological restoration, community protection, equitable partnerships, justice, and full and fair participatory processes. It's consistent with the rights of nature, valuing the health and well-being of Mother Earth by producing, consuming, and redistributing resources in harmony with the planet. It values dignity of work and humanity and priorities community governance and ownership of work and resources. Supports collective and inclusive participatory governance, requires relocalization and democratization of how we produce and consume goods, and ensures all have full access to healthy food, renewable energy, clean air and water, good jobs, and healthy living environments. It also requires an explicit anti-racist, anti-poverty, feminist, and living approach that is intersectional and eschews top-down, patriarchal, classist, xenophobic, and racist ideology. In a nutshell, we can go to the next slide. As we were building this out, a lot of our organizations pulled from our continued work that we have been building in our communities to determine how we want to see thrive and how we want to see a regenerative economy in our communities, whether it's indigenous and tribal sovereignty. You can go to the next slide. Where we're looking at taking land back. What does it mean to protect Mother Earth, the rights of Mother Nature? What does a Green New Deal look like for indigenous communities? And how do we ensure that we all get free together? Next slide. And what does it mean for the Gulf South? as we look at our members like Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy and how they're determining and working with communities who are at the intersection of environmental racism, as well as increasing threats of climate change. You can go ahead.
Should I do the video or just next slide?
Yes, we can definitely play that video. Thank you so much, Ben. Wanted to show a quick clip just so you can see how the South is moving. When they say,
write it down on paper.
Looks like
Trouble understanding. We're going to learn how to follow Black and Indigenous local leaders. So what's going to happen is we're going to process now to Mahalia Jackson Theater.
We are the ones who are going to save this Gulf South, and we're going to do it with the vision for a Green New Deal. We win no more terminals in Plaquemines Parish, no more pipelines going through indigenous territory. That's what we win. We make sure that people who have children can go home to their children and make enough money to sustain themselves with livable wages and good jobs. We win when we love each other. We win when we protect each other. That's what we can win with this. This is not about a piece of legislation, y'all. Don't get this twisted. This is about a moment in time. This is about right now. And this is about what we can do together. And I believe we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
Thank you so much. And as we think about all the different communities, it also helped to frame out how we would build out some of these pillars. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you, Ben. And we thought about things like justice for Black communities. Continue on. And a feminist economy. And that led us into the 80 policy positions and priorities that make up the People's Orientation to a Regenerative Economy Toolkit. And I'm going to pass it over to Ben, who's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. So yeah, again, this really, the People's Orientation for a Regenerative Economy really came together, really kind of just like the video showed, like from communities from all over the country, frontline communities and organizations from all over the country coming together and putting together our collective visions for what we wanted for our communities into a bigger picture, a bigger framework, one that could actually speak for, one that could actually tell the whole story of what it is that we're trying to build. And when we boiled it down, when we kind of, spent that year kind of starting in 2019, working and developing and hashing out what are these policies, what are all these practices that we need to be building out from the bottom up. We came up with these 80 policies, which we're not going to go into in detail, but kind of divided them up into 14 intersectoral planks that really boil down, and each 14 of these planks is all about protecting our communities, our people on our planet, repairing our relationship with each other and with Mother Earth, investing in communities that have been taken from and extracted from for far too long, and then fundamentally transforming the society and the world that we live in. And I'm going to walk us through some of these planks, each of these planks, because I think it's important for us to just kind of understand the breadth of this vision. So the first plank, which is Indigenous and Tribal Sovereignty, which Carrie's already touched on. It's listed second here, just because this slide, or after plank 2 here, because this slide was published during the uprisings of last summer. And so there was just a discussion of how to make sure that we're prioritizing and centering both Black and Indigenous folks at the same time. That's why this slide reads this way. Plank 2 is justice for Black communities, which has also been touched on, and also ensuring that there's justice for immigrant communities in plank 3. Obviously, we also need to address transition, as Ashley mentioned, for communities that are reliant on natural gas and reliant on oil, reliant on coal. Oftentimes are the same frontline communities that are being poisoned by them. Making sure that we're really investing in protections and investment for sacrifice zones and environmental justice communities, so that the law actually does what it's supposed to do, and protect and heal and repair the communities that have been poisoned so that rich people can get richer. And then also including things like healthcare for all and a homes guarantee, which would guarantee everyone in the country a right to a home, which aren't normally things that are talked about as climate issues, but that we see day in, day out in the lived reality of our members and our leaders, how the lack of access to healthcare, even in this pandemic, which is a direct result of the extractive economy, very much is a climate issue, both in the sense that we know we're dealing with worse and worse health crises, and the fact that we know we need to build out new jobs and centers to the economy that don't poison and that don't kill, and care work and healthcare are an important part of that. Obviously, talking about energy, making sure that we're rejecting false solutions, ending extractive energy economics, and building a system of energy democracy, one where energy is not just owned by a few, we're not just going from a system where we have a few dozen rich white dudes who own all the fossil fuels and own all the energy, to another system where a very similar looking group of people owns all the solar panels and all the wind, but one where our communities actually control, manage, and benefit from the renewable sources of generation of energy, ensuring that there's real, at the same, in this similar spirit, making sure that there's full food and land sovereignty for all people, and making sure that we have equitable and clean energy, such emissions-free transit, so that there's freedom for movement for all folks. And then finally, knowing that we are going to be living with climate change for the next century, even if we do everything right, making sure that we are investing in building out systems of real just recovery and support for the communities that are already and have been being hit by climate-influenced disasters and that will be in the future, investing in a feminist economy that values and centers reproductive labor that femme and women do in our society, overwhelmingly unpaid and underappreciated, making sure that that work, which is life-affirming and sustaining and necessary for any other kind of labor to be done, is actually valued and centered by our economy instead of just being treated as quote-unquote women's work. And then above all, investing in the regenerative economy, so building out institutions, people's institutions that are actually able to absorb and take the money that we're taking away from the polluters and that we're taking away from the 1%, and ensure that that stays in communities and that it benefits our communities. So there's a lot. If you want to go to the unitedfrontlines.org, you can download the full People's Orientation. It's a bit of a read, but an inspiring one. And it's also not just a list of policy. This isn't just a list of policy points. It's also about practice, and it's about how we organize. And so each of these different 80 policies, some of them are about, you get your state legislature to pass these. Some of these are things that we need to fight for in the streets and outside of, and through direct action and outside of legislative processes. But they all tie together in this kind of, in that we can fight for all of these at 5 different points of intervention, which we kind of also have this visual metaphor, which some folks find helpful, some folks find confusing, but I'm going to walk through it in case y'all find it helpful. Really starting with narrative and the story, how we're changing the story that's told about frontline communities, that is told about Black, Brown, and Native communities, not as being victims of changes that are brought by folks with more power, but as actually the folks shaping society. Second, watering those seeds and growing that narrative by talking to our neighbors, talking to folks in our communities, building base, building our organizations. And then as we build that power, growing the plan of bottom-up, kind of the stock of bottom-up policy by organizing, by demanding, by winning campaigns, and then really making sure that we can fully enjoy the fruit or the flower of that policy, of that people's policy, by making sure that we're organizing around implementing that policy and electoralizing so that we win the power to sustain and defend those wins. And then finally, and above all, the thing that sustains all of this thing that kind of keeps this whole thing in motion, is direct action, ordinary people taking action in their communities, at the front doors or the offices of the folks in power who are trying to block this vision, and making sure that their power is being felt and heard and seen. And so just want to briefly talk about the kind of like how this relates to Thrive, because that is kind of the moment that we're in. A lot of the things that are most exciting about Thrive directly come from UFD members pushing for and advocating in coalition for the vision that really lives in the people's orientations. When we're talking about making sure that 50% of all investment, not just like benefits or whatever, but 50%, at least 50, setting 50% as the floor of investment for frontline communities, that comes directly from the vision of the people's orientation for a regenerative economy, of really focusing on making sure that we're not, throwing money in like a charity spending kind of way on communities that have been exploited and poisoned the most, but that we're actually centering the healing, the repairing, the transforming of those communities as a core part of what this big federal policy is all about. And so yeah, I'll pause there for thoughts and questions. I know there are some, unless I skipped over anything else.
No, you've been super awesome. Thank you for breaking that down. You did the whole flower so well. And yes, it is a read, honey, but it is a good read. So you can catch that at unitedfrontlinetable.org. We have really broken down a lot of great strategies with the People's Orientation to a Regenerative Economy Toolkit. We did want to shout out again that this toolkit is a growing document as we continue to think about what are our other issues that we have that we need to address, and how do we build our red and our green lines around that. And one of that is anti-militarism. As we're looking at everything that's happening in Palestine right now and throughout the world, we want to make sure that we're looking at that from a lens of climate justice, as well as a lens of how do we get out of that? How do we get out of that military state, that military mind that really damages not only our lives, our economies, but also our ecology in ways we can never return back to. So anywho, we got any questions? What y'all doing? How y'all doing? DJ Emancipation, you've been holding us down. Thank you. Do we have any questions in the Chizat?
Not seeing any, but I might just not be looking in the right place. That has happened before.
Well, either way, we enjoy and very excited to have y'all with us. I hope y'all watch this on the record. And if you ever have any questions for us, make sure that you hit us up at unitedfrontlinetable.org. You can also learn about the organizations that make up this group, and you can also learn more about the Thrive agenda and continuing to move forward as we build out the future that we really need. Ciao, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Okay, y'all.
Oh yeah.
And people's orientation to regenerative economy. Shout out to y'all. Okay? Showing up for each other. Follow Black and Indigenous leaders, y'all. Just FYI, $5 billion of US funding goes to Israel every single year.